It is truly fitting, whose life's work exemplifies the power of words and ideas, to inaugurate this sanctuary of literature and knowledge. Let us warmly welcome Dr. Shashi Tharoor to deliver the inaugural address.
Namaskaram. Reverend Father Beju K. Isaac, Professor Dr. Bobby Jose, Dr. John Neelan Kabil, Shri Sudesh, Father Sunil Anthony, Advocate Rajesh Babu, Shri Suresh Kumar, Vedil Sahasirikana Ella Bahumanyare, Ella Virkamenda Vinidamaya Namaskaram. എന്നോട് പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ആവശ്യപ്പെട്ടത് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ പ്രസംഗിക്കാനാണ്. വിരോധമുണ്ടോ? ഇതുവരെ എല്ലാവരും മലയാളത്തിലാണ് സംസാരിച്ചത്. പക്ഷേ since I was asked to speak in English, I'll say a few words. It will not be a very long speech because I'm running more than an hour and a half late. But I do want to say it has been for me an amazing experience to be invited to visit, inaugurate, and tour the Devagiri College Library in its newly renovated incarnation. It is an absolutely splendid building, exquisitely and beautifully designed, thoughtfully laid out and furnished, and it has, I must say, struck me as a place that filled me with three immediate reactions. One was awe. This was such an absolutely awesome construction, and the vision that had gone behind it was terrific. The second reaction was one of admiration, because what I saw was a group of people who had thought of everything. There were facilities for people to read, obviously that's what libraries are about. There were facilities for people to sit and contemplate. There were facilities of cubicles for scholars, faculty, and researchers. There were e-readers available for those who prefer to work on computer screens. There was even a wonderful facility that gave access to disabled people. Those who cannot see will be able to have books read to them on a headphone, and any book in the library. So to my mind, everything has been thought of, and on top of that, it has been done with such exquisite taste, so beautifully laid out. Some of the loveliest bookshelves I've ever had the privilege to see. Thought has gone into naming each room, whether it's named for ancient universities like Alexandra, Nalanda, Pergamon, and so on, or whether their little meeting rooms are named for great inspirational moments of history. The Academy of Plato, the Lyceum of Aristotle, they're all repeated here. To my mind, the admiration comes from the fact not only that this library exists, but how much thought and care has gone into every little detail in every corner of this beautiful place, including the architecture. The natural light flooding in everywhere, the staircase of light, the curved staircases in the middle. I was just absolutely enthralled. And finally, my third reaction was one of envy, because I, in my student days, have been to dozens of libraries around the world, but I've never had the pleasure and privilege of stepping into such a lovely library and being able to study there. My congratulations to all the students who by luck or timing or desire or decision find themselves in Devagiri as this library comes into play. Because to my mind, this will be a tremendous enhancement of your educational experience. I genuinely wish that I could have myself partaken of the opportunity to luxuriate in such a library. So I'm going to request the college that one day when my more active political years are behind me and the voters have returned me to the world of books, that I hope that you will allow me to come and be a visiting reader and writer here in your campus, and I can sit there with my own cubicle and just read and write on your premises. It's beautiful. You know, libraries I grew up with some very old-fashioned libraries. I've been to very musty, rusty, steel shelves libraries. I've been to libraries where the catalogs were all on index cards and finding a book was almost impossible, either because the card was misplaced in the catalog or the book was not in the right place on the shelf. I've been to the whole lot. I won't waste your time on that. But still, a library, because it's a repository of knowledge, of learning, that has always had an incredible appeal for me. Think of what a library represents. Think of what each volume in a library represents. Some human being has sat down and spent hours of thought and contemplation, fashioning their ideas and finding the appropriate words and language to express those ideas. Someone has perhaps reviewed it as a peer, has approved it, somebody has edited it, and somebody has then put it into print so that you can benefit from all those hours, all those human hours of labor, of reflection, and of thought. There is no book that doesn't represent hundreds of hours of effort. It may take you just 1 or 2 hours to read, or 3 or 4 hours to read. But think of what's gone into that, and think of how fortunate we are that we have access in a few hours to the knowledge, the thoughts, the reflections of people perhaps long dead and gone, who have lived on this earth, on this planet, and shared their reflections with us across the span of ages and time. That's no small thing. To my mind, that storehouse of knowledge and ideas. I know when I enter a library, I will never be able to say that I've read 10% of the books, maybe not even 5% of the books in that library. But still, the fact that there, I can pick them up, I can browse them, I can look into them. That is a privilege that we all have, and it has been made even easier for you by the renovated Devagiri College Library, where you can go in, you can find books more easily, you can check them out yourself, you can bring them back, and you can read them in the comfort that perhaps you don't have in your own hostel room. So this is the luxury that the college has made available to all of you today. But having said that, a library is more than a repository, more than a storehouse. It is actually a storehouse of energy. Because what books contain is ideas and knowledge. Sometimes wisdom also, sometimes merely information. But ideas and knowledge are what ignite people to new ideas and new thoughts, to innovations and entrepreneurship, to having some spark go off in their minds that perhaps was not in the mind of the person who wrote the original book, but that will encourage you to go and carve your own path out. So a library is a repository and a storehouse, but it's also a spark to ignite reflection, action, ideas in your own minds. A library can also be simply a place of information. In fact, it's thoughtful that the Devagiri College Library has space for periodicals and magazines. There's a reading room. You can go and see the latest news. They even have a TV screen there, so you can go and see that. No problem. Whatever you gain that tells you what's going on in the world today must march side by side with what the world has taught you from yesterday. And that's the magic that comes from a library. You know, whenever I'm asked by people to give advice to students, or particularly there's this unfortunate reputation I have developed for having a lot of English words in my vocabulary and being able to use them at the right time. So people will often say something like, teach us a new word. And I will always say, I'm only going to teach you one word. It's a simple, short, 4-letter word, read. If you read, you will acquire everything you want. You'll acquire vocabulary, you will acquire new words, you'll acquire new facts, you'll acquire new information, you'll acquire new ideas. Reading is indispensable. Reading is like the toddy tapper wielding his hatchet on the coconut, cutting through the rough husk that enshrouds our minds to tap into the exhilaration that ferments within. Nobody's mind, certainly not in a college, is condemned to dullness or to boredom. There's so many stimulations here, so many stimuli here. But you have to open the door and let those ideas bubble forth. You have to let them ferment in your mind. And for that, there is only one formula: you must read. Whether you read in a library, whether you read at home, whether you read a book, whether you read a screen, read. And through that, you will find whole vistas and worlds are open to you. New horizons, particularly of the mental kind, as well as new opportunities to discover through others' work your own potential, your own capacity, your own reflections, and perhaps to shape your own future. So read. I fell in love with books as a very young child. I was an asthmatic child, and I frankly grew up in India without television, without Nintendo, without PlayStation, without mobile telephones or laptops or computers. So the only escape I had when I was sitting in bed wheezing with asthma, unable to sleep and unable to lie down, all I had was books. And books were my escape, but they were also my education, they were also my entertainment. And I urge all of you, please do not see books as only tools for your coursework for college. See books as keys to the future, as sources of pleasure, as sources of joy. Get them out of the library, even on subjects that are not required by your classroom teacher. Go back to your room and see what you can discover from those books. With those words, I want to thank Devagiri College again for having graciously invited me. I've spoken at this college before, but I haven't had an opportunity to come and participate in such a special and meaningful event as inaugurating this library. I have to apologize to the distinguished dignitaries on the stage that I must leave because I have to get back. Not only am I an hour and a half late, but I have another function to go to, which is an hour away. So I'm running very, very late. But I do want to thank you all very much for this privilege and very proudly declare the renovated college library officially inaugurated. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.